everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, joined this week by Charloco, still working title.
Hey, everybody.
um, and unfortunately, at the time of this recording, the Ring of Honor promotion, the future of it is very much in doubt. They've ran what seemed like, for all intents and purposes, their final show. Had some ROH legends come back and
Braun Strowman.
I still haven't seen the show yet at the time of this recording, but I did hear about that. But yeah, unfortunately, through all the good times and the bad, it seems like ROH may not be around much longer. So now that at least it seems like it's reached a conclusion, we can look back at lots of different things about Ring of Honor that we enjoyed. And one of the things I wanted to do was give our top 10 Ring of Honor champions. There's been, now that it seems like maybe the final ROH champion has been crowned, we can take a look at the history of that title, the different reigns, and give our opinions as to who the top 10 ROH World Champions were. I'm hoping me and Charloco do not have a different list. I know that everybody's criteria on what makes a good champion or how they should be included on the list may be different, so bear that in mind before you completely spam the both of us with hate. But without any further ado, let's get started with number 10, and I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm going first. Okay, well, I decided my number 10 is honestly kind of a shitpost because I guess just for an explanation, bringing it down to 10 was a bit harder than I thought, just in the sense that, or you have your really good title runs, and then you have some quick ones, and then you have, I don't want to say mid, but I guess you could say they're just kind of on the level of good, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I decided this, for my 10th rank, is one person, yet somehow three people. Number 10 for me is the Clone Wars. Yes, the Eddie Edwards, or going from Roderick Strong, Eddie Edwards to Davey Richards. Three pretty solid, runs on their own, but they're almost all booked as if they were the same person. So if you put them all as one reign, it actually works as a really good year and a half long run.
Okay, that's an interesting take. That is an interesting take.
Because I was looking at it and this may have been a hot take, but out of those three, I was gonna put Roderick because I felt like his stood out the most compared to the three of them, as Eddie's was just kind of out of nowhere, but he ran with it, and then Davies just had just too much bad booking.
Yep.
Against his control, so I felt like Roderick did the best with his, but I was like, they're all just so damn their runs and pretty much just them as wrestlers at that time of 2010, 2011, they're all just so damn fucking similar that it's just very easy just to put them all as one.
Right. Yeah, it was very much and they're all great wrestlers, and I enjoyed all three of them. And I'm glad that all three of them got that championship reign. But it was just kind of they epitomized the "we are Ring of Honor, pro wrestling is serious business."
All even down to having the same gear, hairstyle, kick pads,
except for maybe Roderick Strong. And I know my friend Nick is Roderick Strong is one of his all-time favorites, top 5 all-time for him. Which kudos there. But I do remember during this time because Roderick and Davey were the big rivalry, and we always gave Nick a bunch of shit because there was this promo when they first went to the Sinclair broadcast, they first had their TV show. Davey's doing the wrestling is my passion, and this is my, it means I'm the best, and, all this kind of stuff, that you expect Davey Richards to do.
Yeah.
And then, it came with Roderick, for every bit as great as he was in the ring, the promos were not there with him. And
Oh, this was where he was talking about being like a Florida party guy.
yeah, he's like, I'm gonna win because I'm the shit. And I go and get laid with all the women out there. And the best part about all this is it's gonna make Davey mad. My favorite hobby. Like, the last part of that, it's gonna make Davey mad. My favorite hobby is an actual quote. Everything else was kind of cliff and the I'm the shit. All of that, like, I'm gonna go get laid and all that stuff is kind of like cliff notes, but the best part is it's gonna make Davey mad. My favorite hobby.
Oh god, I would almost consider going back for like a series of just us watching those early Cornette Sinclair episodes because they're a fucking trip.
Oh yeah, they are. They are. But that is a solid choice because it's kind of a nice. It's kind of a way to give three people that if they been booked better, maybe they would have had 3 legendary reigns. But
Yeah.
it's kind of funny you went with that because my number 10 is the person that ended the Clone Wars, and that's Kevin Steen. Kevin Steen was the best, the thing that the man that carried ROH for a long time. You know, like, yeah, Davey was great, and they had the matches, the great matches, but you know, his feud with El Generico, and then later on, him being quote unquote let go for budget cuts, aka some loudmouth atheist with a tennis racket didn't get him, so he released him. But the popularity and the story was all still there. Um, and Kevin Steen came back basically as, you know, it's him against all of Ring of Honor. And, you know, it was an all right storyline in spite of Cornette. And I'm
I
not,
mean, I think here's the best way to put it. Like, just to show how out of touch Cornette was just in 2012 or 2011 or whenever this was.
12, yes.
He booked Steen as an anti-authority guy, thinking it was going to make him a legit heel. Like, you know, this man worked in WWF in 1999 at the height of Steve Austin and thought, no, man, they're gonna see Kevin Steen like being all like fuck the company, fuck the system, and they're gonna boo him. And like he thought that was gonna work.
To be fair, I will give Cornette enough credit. It could have worked had it not been booked completely bad, because like Kevin Steen could do that. Like, yeah, he was cool, but like when you're actually saying like I want to put Ring of Honor out of business, the ROH fans would not like that. You know, because it's like, oh god, now we're forced to just watch TNA and WWE. That's bad, and we don't like that. But it's the fact that Cornette just went like in a completely, you know, when you said, it's one thing to say for the heel in this case to say I want to put the company out of business and do shitty things to try and put the company under and make it look bad, i.e., like when they did the CZW cross promotion a couple years later. That there's one thing to do that and still get some heat from, you know, being against the home team. It's another thing to literally be booked in like gauntlet matches and be like, and you're supposed to love me that I'm stacking the deck against this guy. But
yeah, and then like I'm trying not to go on a tangent of why
Cornette.
I think Cornette is like more full of shit than like people realize. But yeah, it's like, yeah, Cornette. Now I feel like he never fully got like
ROH,
the irony of why people like wouldn't like him or would not, or what like an anti-Ring of Honor thing would be. Because it's like, you know, for like Kevin Steen, it's like, oh, I want to end Ring of Honor. You think it would to be the antithesis of what the Ring of Honor fan wants? It'd be like WWE booking, like a bunch of shitty DQs or like gimmicks or like be a cowardly heel. But he's like, but like anti-Ring of Honor Kevin Steen was, oh, well, here he is having a bunch of like really fucking good hardcore matches and like just having really good matches and like still looking like a badass most of the time.
Exactly. And that's why it is still on the list, because he had a good run.
Yeah.
He played the role well in spite of itself, and you know, as his reign continued and as he grew, like, you know, he realized, you know, he had a good story arc. And part of this was because Cornette was ousted from power towards the end of his reign, but he had a good story arc where he realized, hey, I may not love Ring of, I may not be like a company ROH man, but, you know, carrying the banner of this company made me realize I don't have to just want to destroy the company and tear it down and put it out of business and rebuild it in my own image. Like, I don't have to be that guy, you know. And
Yeah.
his final match, you know, against Jay Briscoe, one of, you know, controversial figure, sure, but, you know, one of the people there since day one, you know, there to save Ring of Honor, where, like, not only does a guy from the day one save ROH, but Kevin Steen realizes he doesn't have to be the person that he thought he had to be in order to be respected and be recognized, you know, as how great he was. It was a good arc for Kevin Steen, and, you know, if maybe somebody that understood the ROH audience and what the ROH audience wanted was booking it, maybe he'd be a little higher on this list. But he is worthy of being on my list, and that's
He
why I gave him
actually
number 2.
is. I'm sorry. He does pop up later on my list. So should I save anything else I want to say about the run, like for that moment?
Yeah, save it all for when it's your turn, man.
Okay.
So we are on to number 9 now.
All right. Number 9. Like I said, I'm playing very loose with a lot of these. So some may have different criteria than others, but for number 9, I'm going with Loki.
Okay.
Yeah. He like I wasn't until looking back like for this list I forgot just how overall short his run was.
Right.
But I think just a combination of A, being like the first champion, obviously, and B, I would say the fact that like, and when you go back to that time frame of like 2002, 2003, of just being like, I think when you first started hearing about Ring of Honor, you really wanted, like, he was just so different than like what was going on like mainstream wrestling at the time.
Right.
So like, while like it might take like, so I think it just, he worked as a first champion as opposed to like some of the others who like were also really good, but I feel like you'd have to sit down and like watch a bit to be like, okay, this Bryan Danielson kid is really something, or okay, I'm warming up to the CM Punk guy. But with like Loki, it's like you could just watch like the Matrix Minute, for example, with him and Amazing Red, or just a few clips just to be like, holy shit, this guy is like fucking something else.
Right.
So like, so like more of I think just what he like represented as a first champion, as opposed to really it's his run itself, if that makes sense.
Right. I get it. That's solid. Not going to disagree with it at all. My number 9 is the most, as at the time of this recording, the most controversial, disliked man, at least on Twitter, in wrestling, and that is Cody Rhodes.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm going with Cody Rhodes. Well, first of all, kind of to give you an idea, you know, kind of set things up. When I thought of the ROH title for the longest time, you kind of thought of the guy who was the best of the wrestling world outside of WWE and then later on TNA. You know, this was the champion was somebody who very much traveled different promotions. You know, kind of starting with Samoa Joe, but traveled to different promotions. You know, defended the title against all comers, whether it was internationally, other independent groups. You know, the ROH champion was kind of the, you know, while NWA titles being featured and later on their own titles being featured, you know, in matches in Nashville and Orlando, and the WWE title was just the WWE title. Like, this was kind of like the traveling independent champion. And that's how I always used to think of the Ring of Honor belt, and it kind of got away from that whenever they got bought by Sinclair. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's not the debate right now. But the reason I picked Cody Rhodes, going off of that, the reason I picked Cody Rhodes is despite the fact that Cody did win it when they were owned by Sinclair, when they were definitely a television product, when they weren't really as independent as they were in the past, Cody was still taking that belt and doing his independent run and defending it in independent promotions. And hey, are you
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, are you seeing Cody Rhodes in Glory Pro Wrestling in St. Louis, Missouri? Oh, hey, he's defending the Ring of Honor title. Oh, hey, he's making a whatever match in Memphis. He's defending the ROH title against Jerry Lawler. And Cody, to me, other than holding the belt and getting a lot, because him along with the Elite were getting that big buzz in 2017, and just kind of doing their own thing, and that was a big part of it, and the buzz he was given that title. But he was also kind of, to me, represent the last of the traveling Ring of Honor champion, where the ROH champion's gonna make an independent promotion and he'll defend the belt. He's gonna go to the UK and he's gonna defend the belt for a completely different group, or he's gonna go to Japan and he's gonna defend it there. And so many of the greats did that. They got away from that for you could argue a good reason, you could argue it being a bad reason, but Cody was the last guy to do that. And it was a short run, but it was definitely definitely something that I think's worthy of being on the list, because he was the last of the dying breed. And you may hate Cody Rhodes nowadays, and you might get pissed off that some people didn't get included, but as Al Gore say, there's an inconvenient truth for you.
Gotcha. And what did you think of the actual the Ring of Honor gimmick itself?
I didn't really like that as much, but hey.
But it's Cody has a ring gimmick fetish, because I felt like he then put it on to MJF once they got into AEW.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was
I feel like it just. Oh, sorry.
It was interesting, but I just didn't. I wasn't big on that, but I mean, just my criteria for my list is I'm going off of the reign, So there's
I got you.
There's gonna be.
I just feel like I've never had a chance else to bring it up, but yeah, I just feel like.
Oh yeah.
For some reason, the ring gimmick just doesn't work in a major crowd. I feel like, and this goes just because it's such a small item that you have to work into a big arena, that unless you go full really telegraph it, because I felt like I saw a few Cody matches at that time in Ring of Honor where they would just end suddenly and the crowd kind of didn't really catch on because he used the ring in the match, or the ring was used against him,
right?
Because you can't see shit. But yeah, it's a good.
But he had some excellent brawls with Lethal and Daniels, and losing it to, at the time, what we thought was going to be a major player in Dalton Castle. You may laugh now, but we thought Dalton Castle was going to be the next big thing. And
yeah, that just kind of makes me sad. Hopefully, maybe all this changing around might turn things.
Maybe, but him kind of passing the torch like that, and just kind of.
Yeah.
To me, when I think of Cody Rhodes' run with the title, it was Ring of Honor, at least at their, to me, it defined ROH making itself the number 2. And yes, I know we're talking about now, but ROH was number 2 for a while in the United States. And it defined not only ROH, it arguably it's, at least in terms of mainstream buzz, so to speak, peak, but also the last remnants of what the ROH title used to represent, in my opinion.
I got you. And I was looking over, I was a big fan of that run too. I think one of the reasons I didn't put it on my overall list, one of the big things, I felt like there was a potential for a better run, or even a second world title run for Cody in Ring of Honor that never happened. I think a lot of it was just kind of interpromotional booking, dealing with New Japan, setting up, all in, since it seemed like that was going to be the angle between him and Aldis, title for title at one point. But then it seemed like Ring of Honor got cold feet, and then it seemed like they didn't like the fact that with him working New Japan as well, where he wasn't that high up on the card, like you'd be taking a lot of pins there. So then you don't want your world champion,
Right.
losing a lot. So like it was a great run, but yeah, I felt like there could have been more if like circumstances were different.
Right. We are to number 8. And it's your turn.
Okay. Different wrestler. However, a lot of what you said about Cody's run, I feel like applies to this one. But for my number 8, Jay Lethal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be getting to him a little later. Just a small spoiler, but yes.
Yeah. Overall, great run. Specifically the first one, I feel like that has been Jay at its peak. I always described it as he basically took what he did as Black Machismo and the Flair impressions and was able to create his own character with it that felt natural and didn't feel like an impersonation. I'm honestly surprised we have not seen anything like that from him since. So I don't really know if that was like a lot of Truth Martini's doing or someone in booking, but I'm hoping now that he has a kind of a change of scenery that we might see something similar soon. But yeah, just because he was firing on all cylinders at that point between being both the world and TV champion, promos, matches. He did take it take the belt to defend internationally a lot as well. I honestly, I wouldn't even probably have him higher on the list if the second reign was a bit more significant, since I feel like the second reign we kind of got to that point for the later Ring of Honor title runs of, okay, who can we rely that will still be here come the next contract season?
Right. Still a solid choice. My number 8 is going to be someone that I think before I say my number 8, I want to emphasize this next point. Listen to what I said and listen to what I said earlier, and keep in mind, I'm only going by their title reigns. I am not going by what they meant to the company or how many match of the year candidates they had for the company. I am not going by that. I am simply going by what did you do with the Ring of Honor title. So, that being said, my number 8 is CM Punk.
Okay.
Basically, it was, like everything that the first pipe bomb was as a result of him winning the title. And it was the story of Punk selling out and wanting to, the whole first pipe bomb was him just kind of shooting on the entitled and spoiled fans of Ring of Honor. And because of that, and because he didn't feel like he was appreciated by Ring of Honor, he's going to WWE, and he's going to take that belt with him and, do whatever he wants with it. Whatever Vince wants him to do with it. If you want to throw it in the trash, he'll throw it in the trash. He'll set it on Vince's desk, or he'll just walk around with it like a trophy. Who knows? And it was the original Summer of Punk, and it was. It was a short reign. That's hence why it's so low, is because it was just a 3-month reign. It was about the best 3-month reign anybody could ever ask for. Especially with the creativity that they went in with that, with him originally just showing up to taunt, and then like trolling the audience, saying, "I'm going to defend against these guys. Oh, no way, I'm just going to leave." And then him getting goaded by Mick Foley to put the belt on the line too. Ironically, Jay Lethal first, and then kind of the different ways he was forced or duped or made to defend the title up until eventually he lost it, where they actually did say, like, he will never come back after this date in Chicago. Like, he's not coming back. If a Ring of Honor star cannot get the belt from him by this date, we are losing the belt. Which I thought was an interesting way of going about it. Like there is a finality to this, and somebody's got to do it. And there was always that desperation you felt in all of Punk's title defenses.
Yeah.
Whether he was wrestling Roderick Strong, like, is Roddy going to be the one to save it? He had the belt stolen from him by Christopher Daniels, And, that's how he goaded him into defending it against Daniels and then that match went to a draw. So many different layers. Like, well, who's going to be the person? And you're believing every challenger because you're like, well, he can't hold the belt. ROH ain't gonna let him lose the belt, and then loses it in a fatal 4-way, which you can argue this wasn't the best choice, but kind of at the time maybe it was with where Ring of Honor as a company was going. James Gibson, aka Jamie Noble, was the best choice because he kind of played the antithesis of Punk because he was also leaving, but he's like, I'll break my contract if it means having to take this belt with me. I'm not going to do that. So it's
I feel like if dates were laid out differently, they would have had a returning Danielson be the one to take it.
Probably, but it worked.
Yeah.
It worked well for what they're trying to do, but still, the original pipe bomb, the original Summer of Punk, all of these things happened in ROH first, and it was right here. This was the groundwork to everything we saw in 2011. And while on a personal level, I've kind of, grown out of kind of liking CM Punk, I'm not going to take anything away from how much I love this storyline and love this angle. And the only reason it's so low before anybody comes at me with, you hate CM Punk so much that you put him below some of these other names, is because he only had it for 3 months. It's the best short reign in Ring of Honor history, but at the end of the day, it's still a short reign.
I gotcha. Like, he's up on my list later, so I'm not going to say too much. But yeah, I think everybody was just so into that angle. It's also crazy to think, looking back, I feel like outside of maybe PWG fans who still experience this, but just kind of like living vicariously through those reports of like what's going on, and then just not even being able to see it until like a few months later. Because I remember being like at my grandma's house, like, and on her like computer using like the old 2005 internet, getting like on the Ring of Honor message board, getting like minute by minute updates of like the match with Daniels going into an hour draw for a match I will not probably be seeing for like another 4 months.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we're at number, I want to say 7?
7.
All right. Let me double check here. For my number 7, this is where I'm going with Kevin Steen.
Okay.
For me, no disrespect to other champions that came after, or guys like, I'd say Adam Cole or other top guys, but I feel like this was the last time in Ring of Honor someone really won the world title at their hottest, if that makes sense.
Okay. That's what you're saying.
I feel like he came right off of the, he had the Generico feud, then was gone for a year. Then you just had all this momentum. Like, once he came back and was all fuck Ring of Honor. And I felt like, even though he was gone for a year, once he came back, they really didn't wait. They like got the title on him very quickly. And this was when like Steen's kill was still really getting over. So I don't know. I just feel like, and while like, I'd say like, keep going back to Adam Cole just because I feel like that was the last. I was trying not to say significant champion, but like, I'd say the last real name, I guess, if that makes sense. But I feel like this is the last time a guy in Ring of Honor as champion really had like the momentum that led them into WWE, if that makes sense. Because I feel like some of the other later world champions, even if they did become like the NXT guys and stuff, I felt like you could argue a lot of that also came from maybe like what they were doing in PWG or elsewhere along with Ring of Honor. But I feel like that angle and what Kevin Steen was doing at that time, like,
yeah, I got what you're saying.
Just was one of the last times that really, like, people were really taking notice to someone as the champion, as opposed to just someone who was also conveniently the champion.
Gotcha. All right. Well, my number 7 is kind of controversial figure to say the least, especially because of the fact that he really loves the company that he works for right now, and that is Tyler Black. Tyler Black was hindered by kind of the bad ROH trope of no, let's wait, let's milk it, and then eventually like you waited too long, and then they get and you're like, okay, this is still neat, but like it would have been even neater if you would have done it 2 months ago. But
Yeah.
you know,
Or 2 years ago.
yeah, or 2 years ago, or 9 months ago, or whatever. So Tyler Black was hindered by that. He was hindered by some bad booking, and not all of it was Jim Cornette's. But once he finally got the belt, he I feel like he lived up to expectations. Was what was kind of the shine off by the time he eventually got it? Yeah, but he carried the belt well against Roderick Strong, rematches with Roderick Strong, Austin Aries, going into what seemed like was going to be a really long term feud with Kevin Steen, but that never materialized for a number of reasons, but still a good match. I remember, to me, like the defining moment of his title reign was at Death Before Dishonor. He was going to defend against Davey Richards, and Davey was kind of in that, well, he's getting hotter, and like, are they going to pull the? You really didn't know, like, even the ROH fans, which want to fantasy book everything, truly didn't know what they were going to go with, what was going to happen. Are they going to take the belt off of Black so soon? He just won it. And put it on Davey Richards, who's kind of the man right now in independent pro wrestling, or they gonna hinder Davey, they gonna make us wait on Davey and teeter that line a little bit, but maybe that's okay because you got to give Tyler Black more time, and it was an amazing match. They did kind
Oh
of
no, that is a great fucking match.
They did kind of rehash the CM Punk storyline a little bit with him because he did agree to a WWE contract while he was still the champion. Only only slight difference is he didn't let himself be goaded into putting the belt up. He went at it like more the businessman of like, I my only obligated title match is here, and that's when I'm going to defend the title. So, I no.
Or could match the promos.
Yeah. And he did have a really, like, one of his last promos in Ring of Honor was really amazing, where he just basically said, like, probably hurt a lot of feelings at the time, but it's kind of like now what I want to say to everybody who gets mad about, I mean, granted, the company's different now, but, like, the mentality that a lot of people had in the, 2016, 2017, 2018, when people would go to NXT and they'd be like, "Oh, they ruined Independence, and they ruined New Japan, and they ruined Ring of Honor." And he did like a very, like, this is my dream, and I am, and did like it was a fucking, for a guy that has a weird voice and can't always cut a great promo. This one was on point, and it's a great promo, and I understand the significance of it a little bit more now. He lost the belt and kicked off the Clone Wars, as you put it, but that kind of was what it was. The reason it's so low is because it could have been, like, this could have honestly been top 5 had he not signed with WWE, and I mean that sincerely. If he did not go to WWE when he did as champion, and would have kept running with it to eventually lose it to Davey, or
yeah, an eventual Davey Tyler rematch, like for the title, would have been something.
Yeah,
because for me, I was very close because I kept going. Because I know, like, previously we were talking about honorable mentions. Well, I guess I'll spoil it right now because, like, I was very going back and forth between that or the Clone Wars as my number 10 spot. Like, I'd say overall he did have a good run. I think what would have, like, cinched it onto my list was, yeah, if he had it longer, because I felt like if he just had a few more title matches like he did with Davey, like that one title match, which was great. And if you remember at the time, fans were already wanting to turn on him.
Right.
but then he had that match, and
Kinda
that pretty much saved him until like the news came out that he was signing.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we'll talk about this more as it gets further down the list, but like especially when you get to like the top 5, it's like those champions really had so many title matches of where you weren't really expecting much going in, but then once you get there, you're like, holy shit, this guy might win the belt. I was not expecting that.
Right. Oh, I got a champion that's definitive of his reign, but we'll get more on that later.
But yeah, that's a great match with Davey. I think just because of how both of them are looked at a certain fan base now, it gets overlooked. But I feel like at the time, everybody was raving about that match.
Oh yeah. Right. Okay. So we're to number 6. What is your number 6?
Okay. My number 6, another person who is a bit controversial now, but again, at that time, when it was I still wish I could feel this way about the same person, but number 6 goes to Austin Aries.
That's my number 6 too.
Oh.
Yes, so let's talk Austin Aries right now.
Oh, perfect.
I'm wondering if our top 3 are going to be exactly the same at this point, but yeah. So you start off Austin Aries. What was your first, but yeah, Austin Aries is also my number 6.
Well, like kind of even while I was going about that last one, I think this is the epitome of I mean, he was being built up as a good challenger, but for the first run, that was like a surprise title win. Since I think after going through the Punk trilogy, I don't think anyone expected Joe to lose the title at that point.
Right.
But it worked perfectly with just they just played it up as just someone that had been traveling and been putting on all these like hard hitting matches that eventually just a fiery baby face just beats him for the belt out of nowhere. It works. I don't want to use the term.
I agree with that. It was such a surprise, but it was also like you felt that people start to believe through that match.
Yeah.
Like when he hit the brainbuster and went up for the 450, like you kind of had that. No, is he? No, this is Joe. No, what? You had that feeling. Like I wasn't even watching ROH at that time, and I had to watch that show after the fact, and that's the vibe I was getting, and I knew the ending of that match. That's how good it was. But something else is he really, the big question with him coming out of that reign was, is he going to keep this belt on the same level? Is he going to live up to the standard that Samoa Joe set? And that is,
I mean, really no one could, like at that point in time, following that run.
Well, no one could go up to that huge of a standard, but did he keep it to where the ROH champions still commanded that same amount of respect through their title defenses? Yes. Did he?
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Did he continue to take the belt internationally, like Samoa Joe had? Yes. Did the ROH champion still commanded the same respect Samoa Joe had it? It could have went to somebody and then they'd been like, oh fuck, that belt really went downhill once Joe lost it, but it didn't. And you got to commend Aries for that. Is off the walls as he can be with a lot of opinions, on a lot of different topics, and I don't agree with a lot of them. And as much of an asshole as he can allegedly be, dude could fucking go. And we taper that into he is the first man to ever hold the ROH title twice. So
yes, and I would say arguably the best multiple-time champion, just in the sense that with it being the first, he really did have to set a precedence. Since I feel like at that point there was a pride of there being no repeat champions or no back and forth booking. So when he eventually did win it, about 3-4 years later?
2009. So yeah.
Yeah, so it was completely different. It was and correct me, this was did Pierce have the book by this point?
Yes, this was a
Okay,
Pierce
so I feel like
decision.
this was the real first, like really significant run outside of Gabe.
Right.
And I felt like this was the first one to like, first time it really caught. Like this was the first one to really have any momentum.
Right.
Completely different character. Great matches, and he still had several of those like you didn't expect much going in, but still made stars out of opponents.
Yeah.
For example,
Kenny
like
Omega.
the Davey match, the Tyler Black, the Kenny was a title match, right?
Yes.
The Omega match. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like matches where they were just like they sold DVDs just based on the word of mouth of those like title bouts alone.
The only thing that to me took away from his second title reign is, in hindsight, and maybe even at the time too, you were really halting Tyler Black's momentum for no reason, and you really booked Tyler Black to be a complete idiot for the sake of giving Austin Aries reign number 2. And did he set a good precedent for a multiple-time champion? Sure. I'll say yes. He set a good precedent. Maybe not great, but good. But the one thing that just to me always dampers it, despite the fact that he did have great matches, and it all revolves around Tyler Black. The first, do you remember the storyline they did that night when he won it twice?
The triple threat, right?
So Tyler Black had like a Money in the Bank cash in, essentially.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So earlier in the night, he loses the first blood match to Jimmy Jacobs because that feud's still going on. But then he's like, I'm so pissed off, I'm going to cash in my Money in the Bank right now to insert myself and make it a triple threat match between Jerry Lynn, me, and Austin Aries. And it's just like, look, you don't have to cash in on a down champion like Edge, but like, are you stupid? Like the way like he was being booked by doing that, I'm like, hi, are you dumb? Why would you do so? Like, why? Why would any babyface do this? I can understand going, I want to give the champion plenty of notice and not just cash in after he's had a fight without honor against, a gauntlet of Samoa Joe and all these different people, whatever. But it's like, you're going to make, not only did you just get busted open in an attack with a spike, but you're also going to make it so you have to fight 2 people. Are you shitting me right now? So that like
well, you got to keep the heat, brother.
Yeah. Bro, that's heat. You only looking at this like you's one of the mocks. But
yeah, and then like they set up the perfect time for him to lose the belt to Tyler Black. And then they're like, and they're like, you know what this 4-hour show in New York in the middle of a snowstorm needs? An hour fucking Broadway.
Yeah. I remember that was kind of like, I didn't, that was kind of like, as great as Aries was, and this was not on Aries, this was on booking, this was just kind of like, it would maybe be remembered much better if it didn't start out with Tyler Black, kayfabe being a complete and total moron. It's not necessarily on Aries, but it's something that's going to put a damper on the run, unfortunately. But
no, you make a good point. Just because like you like just like I just had a flush of all that and the final bout and all that. I'm almost like, shit, maybe I need to reconsider. But I stand by it.
Yeah. It's best for him at 2 times, and match quality. He made a superstar out of Kenny Omega. Like you were believing Kenny Omega was going to be ROH champion despite only being in the company for about a year during that match. You were believing that Delirious was going to win the title in St. Louis, Missouri, or excuse me, Collinsville, Illinois, suburban St. Louis, during that match. You thought Davey Richards was going to win. You thought that, like he did a good job in that sense, but it was just, he did it at the expense of somebody, he did it at the expense of my number 7 that could have been like number 4, number 3 because of this, but it is what it is, and that's not Aries' fault. As far as in
I
the
don't know in
ring,
too much of a tangent, but could have been different. Let's say if instead of Jerry Lynn, let's say Black was the one that originally beat Nigel for the belt.
see, I
But
actually
so then you had Aries steal, or eventually, this heel Aries eventually steal the belt from Black, beginning that chase.
I'm not gonna. I'm actually in the minority. I did not mind the Jerry Lynn run. Like I thought it was a good thank you run. Nigel's body was breaking down. Jerry Lynn's gonna be one of my honorable mentions. I thought it was good. Like I thought it was a good call. I thought it was a good thank you. I thought it was somebody was gonna get as good of a rub beating Jerry Lynn as they would have beating Nigel. Yes, maybe Tyler should have beat Nigel way back, because that was Gabe's original plan. But having Jerry Lynn win and then either putting over Tyler Black, beating this, independent legend Jerry Lynn, or having Austin Aries just beat Jerry Lynn without any of this, I'm gonna make it a triple threat bullshit. Then I think it would have been, you would have at least made Tyler look better with that, and then maybe I'd have a little bit more fond memories of Aries' second run if it didn't start out with making Tyler Black look like a complete and total idiot.
I agree with that, but I feel like without the second run, well, people would still like the first run. I feel like he would have been looked at as just the guy between, Punk and Joe.
Fair, but he's also the one that ended Joe's run, so that commands something.
Sure. I can agree with that.
And back to the triple threat match, like, I've heard people say, like, well, they wanted to really build up the suspense and then be Tyler's night. It's like, okay, that's fine, but I'm talking, like, you're still making the babyface look like a complete moron. You wouldn't have the winner of the NFC title game, despite having a hard-fought game go, hey, we're cashing in the Super Bowls now in the AFC title game and this weird three-way football game. You wouldn't do that. That's stupid. So don't make your babyface do that. I'm still sore about that. That is my one, like, ROH is dumb moment that I would die on back in 2009. But we have a number 5, and we're going to start with you.
All right. Yeah, let's see if we have any more matches. But my number 5 is Murashima.
Okay. It's not a match. Go ahead. Talk about Murashima.
All right. Yeah, had a great run. Another surprise win. Like, there was never anything like it in the sense of just a guy from another promotion coming in. Also, the only way it would have been better is if he didn't lose to Joe the night before.
Yeah.
Which Gabe on his message boards will give you like several different reasons that don't sit, even though we all know it's just because, he's
Samoa Joe.
I'm assuming because, TNA guy can't have him losing. Yeah, I feel like he's one of the most different compared to everybody else. While Joe was a monster, was booked like a monster in some ways, I'd say maybe less of a monster, more like 90s Taz. But I felt like this was like the closest they've ever really had to like a really good heavyweight monster run. Just great matches, great feud with Danielson. So I'm kind of burning out here, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, great match with Danielson. He had those squash matches against like your BJ Whitmer and unfortunately, at the time of this recording, the late Jimmy Rave. Where it's like, oh damn, those are top guys, and he just demolished them. Like what the hell? And then therefore it made when somebody pushed him to the limit, like a Nigel, a Brian, Claudio Castagnoli, even. When those people would push Murashima to the limit and came up short, but that raised their stock in defeat.
Yeah, and I think because, both before and after this run, Ring of Honor would kind of get into parity of how long some of their title matches would get. So having someone that could do a good, 15 minutes or maybe going into 20, really does stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I totally get that one. My number 5, however, is Jay Lethal. You
Okay.
know, and yes, like you kind of said with your Jay Lethal, the majority of it is that first run where he was the first double champion. But like, dude, he was so money at that time, man.
Agreed.
Uh, like he was just doing everything. Like the buzz, like other than at that time, other than the buzz for Bullet Club in Japan, I think that's like the best thing you were getting. The Bullet Club in Japan, then by extension, Tanahashi and Okada. It was even better than NXT, and this was when NXT was hot. This was the Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn feud, but like it was on that level. You know, like that's how good Jay Lethal was. Maybe not ROH as a whole, but like Jay Lethal and his title run, and then he gets his second run, not as good as the first, but he put when the biggest stars in your company um just leave to do their own thing. Jay Lethal put that company on his back, and it didn't fall apart around him because of him. He put everything into keeping that company on his back, and if it wasn't for some has-been that put some people through tables wanting to make this into WWE, we'd probably be looking at his second reign just as fondly as his first.
No, agreed. Because I feel like a lot of don't want to get into too many details, but I feel like a lot of what we know now compared to what we knew then, I do feel like maybe just keeping the belt on him at that point would have been the most convenient thing, just because he's a guy people knows, gives consistent matches, still somewhat over. Just keeping it on him until eventually finding another person, as opposed to Matt Taven, may have been the better option.
Yeah, I agree. That's why he's my number 5, and well, we're getting into the nitty gritty here. What is your number 4?
All right. My number 4. This is where I put CM Punk on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's a lot shorter, but I feel like when you look at these reigns, you do need to think like what came before, kind of what comes after that specific run. And I feel like you just went through a near 2-year run with Joe as champion, and then a pretty really good but about standard run, or about a standard Ring of Honor run you'd expect from Austin Aries. So I do feel like, just even though it was only 3 months, having just having somebody, or just having a run that in just that short amount of time, like, just gets so much momentum and so many people talking and so many people wanting to follow, like, it really does stand out, like, in comparison. And I guess personal preference, I do like it. I do like the angles of like, oh, here's this heel champion, but he gets like, but he has like multiple feuds that kind of just build up into a fatal 4-way or something like that.
Right.
And also I think at that time also, like, a part of this was also just, I'd say, all of our imaginations, but I feel like everybody's imagination was running wild when it was happening. If you go back to that time frame, especially when you had like Matt Hardy coming in at the same time, or showing up on WWE TV saying Ring of Honor, like,
yeah.
So like, if you looked at like the message board, like some of the fantasy booking in this angle is getting fucking wild. But I think that just showed just how into it and how much people bought what was going on.
Okay. Yeah, I disagree with him being so high, but I see your point.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Okay, so my number 4 is Adam Cole. The person who's held the belt the most times, the person that, again, he made that title his own, every title reign. Other than maybe his last one, which was fairly short and was just kind of like, they kind of wanted to do a flip-flop so they could get a big deal of something in the Tokyo Dome, having the belt change hands there, and eventually just kind of get the big the big moment of Daniels eventually winning, but like his previous 2 reigns, like he kept that belt relevant. This is when ROH was, TNA was falling by the wayside, and you needed. Granted, a lot of this was through New Japan and AJ Styles in ROH, part time, but the person who was there every week grinding it out was Adam Cole, and he was carrying that brand, he was carrying that company, and during that time period, he was the one. He was the captain of that ship. That and him and the Young Bucks, and you needed people on every level to do that. And Adam Cole did it. He did it 3 times over, and we see Adam Cole as the star he is today because of his time in Ring of Honor with those 3 championship reigns. So
interesting. I like Adam Cole. Admittedly, I feel like I was not watching much, I'd say, around the time of his first run. So I feel like I kind of kept him off my list mainly for that, just not having that much experience with it. He's great though. I do kind of feel like one of the things that, on top of me not following it too much, I would say what kind of kept him off, me really considering going in and looking back to see if I would put him on the list for me was trying to find the right way to put this, but he was always great, but I feel like around the kind of what I mentioned earlier, I feel like around this time was the point where even the Ring of Honor champions were getting just as much, if not more, recognition for what they were doing out of the promotion. For example, I feel like what he was doing in PWG / Mount Rushmore was just as much, if not a bigger thing at that time than being Ring of Honor World Champion.
Fair, but I agree with that to a point, but ROH still wasn't a great TV deal, but ROH still had TV and pay-per-view, where PWG was still kind of that, and I love it, but was still that promotion of, oh, hey, I heard this was good. 3 months later, and now I can get the DVD.
That's true.
But I see what you're saying. But I still, just for how well he carried that belt alone, I feel like he's worthy of that spot. Agreed. Okay, so number 3.
Hold on. All right. Yeah, I feel like this is where we might have things different. But for number 3, this is where I put Nigel.
That's where I put Nigel.
Oh, really? Oh, yep. For some reason I pictured you having him as number 1.
No, but more on that later. I think we might have the same top 3. This is going to be interesting. So let's talk about the most underrated, underappreciated, tragic story outside of deaths and all of pro wrestling to me, Nigel Mcginnis. I'll let you start because we eventually threw to you.
But yeah, overall great run. I feel like he did have a hard act to follow going through both Danielson and Murashima's runs, and in some ways it did feel like not necessarily on him, but on booking, he did kind of have to replicate the great runs that the previous champions did have, which may have really kind of played into the overall wear and tear of his body.
Sure, and that's he literally gave it all, and he maybe even gave his career for that belt, but it's, you can't deny what he did with it, and he really he became to me the most if you want to talk about justifiable heels, that man epitomized it. I mean, he got hurt a lot, and the ROH fan base, rather than being well, Whereas where I'd like to think we are now with wrestling, you know, like, oh hey, they're hurt. Well, they might have to forfeit. They may not. Let's see what happens. But we're behind our champion. The ROH fan base did the exact opposite. In fact, they were like, okay, forfeit the belt. Fuck you. You can't. You know, this is the Hammerstein Ballroom. We don't get an ROH title match. Yeah, screw you, dude. And Nigel took that personally, both as a character and in real life. And then he went on to become potentially one of the greatest heels in Ring of Honor history. His title reign, the closest I'm ever, at least as of this recording, the closest I'm ever going to feel like I was to seeing an old Ric Flair title reign was with Nigel Mcginnis. And here's what I mean by that. You know, going back and watching old Flair clips, you know, there's always 2, maybe 3 people that Flair was probably going to lose the belt to. You know, be it Magna, you know, it's Magnum and Dusty, you know, it's going to be one of those 2 guys. But then he would have a title defense against Ricky Morton. And midway through that, you thought Ricky Morton, the tag team wrestler, was going to win the title. Like, you believed in Ricky Morton. And then
I just had kind of a brain fart and thought you were talking about Nigel or Ricky Morton, and now I am legit upset that match never happened for the title.
That'd have been awesome now, wouldn't it?
It would have been awesome then. Hell, it'd probably be awesome now.
It would, let's be honest. But, so, but, you know, you believed in Ricky Morton, and then you believed that if Ricky Morton got another chance, Ricky Morton was going to beat Ric Flair. And, you know, you believe when Ric Flair wrestled, you know, one of the Road Warriors or Barry Windham, and you're like, okay, that's a mid-level guy, you know, whatever. Well, the next time, it would be such a good match, you believed the next time that was going to change. And, you know, granted, he didn't lose the belt to either one of these, well, but later on, eventually, like, there was, you kind of knew that Nigel was going to lose to either Brian, Tyler, or Lynn. But then he would have title defenses against El Generico, which we all love El Generico. You know, he was a great tag team wrestler, but, you know, nobody ever thought that El Generico would be ROH champion. Until he had that great match with Nigel Mcginnis, and then at Glory by Honor, he's getting his rematch, and then you're like, damn, El Generico's going to become Ring of Honor champion. Same thing with his partner, Kevin Steen. Oh, hey, here's just a really good tag team guy. Holy shit, Kevin Steen. They're having the Kevin Steen match in Canada. Holy fuck, Kevin Steen's going to win.
Oh, yeah. And that's something that I just feel like the later, I don't say specifically Sinclair, but just later Ring of Honor in general, they just didn't really have that. I think just going from like changing into like a television format of booking, you just couldn't get matches or moments like to occur naturally like that.
Right. You know, it was you bought into every challenger because of how great Nigel was, and he made stars. He made guys that you didn't think would ever have a chance to be a main eventer became main eventers because of how great Nigel Mcginnis was during that reign. And, you know, just by God, that reign was his career, and it's unfortunate, you know, 2 guys on a podcast can say, hey, this is one of the highlights of watching Ring of Honor now was his reign, and you know, despite as great as that is, you know, we gotta take a step back and go, but he never got to do WWE because of that. But, you know, he had to retire in his 30s because of that. So, you know,
I'll say, I feel like the one thing that could have got, like, no disrespect to the next 2 people on the list, but I feel like the one thing that could have got him a bit higher, or could have got him in that number 1 spot is, like, he did his role great. But I just feel like when you watch the run itself in real time, you do see, for example, you do see a bit of the fatigue of Gabe as a booker coming in mixed with like the
transition,
kind of like the breaking in phase of Adam Pearce.
So, something else, just because I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about I was believing that Claudio Castagnoli was going when they did like a montage about how what it means when the fans go hey, and like I thought that Claudio was going to be the next champion, and they built up this atmosphere for that match. Holy shit, and then part of that's on Claudio because Claudio's great now Cesaro, but you couldn't have done that match with any other champion but Nigel. You couldn't have. And yeah, you could see the fatigue, and maybe the original plan of it ending in Final Battle to Tyler would have been better. Who knows? But you got to put Nigel Mcginnis in your top 3 if you're ranking ROH champions.
Oh, yeah. Like, hell, like, I think this is also just, like, his reign is so great. For example, I thought me putting him at number 3 would have been considered a slight just because of how great that run was.
Absolutely. Well, let's see if the next 2 match up. What is your number 2?
All right, let's figure this out. For number 2, I'm going with Samoa Joe.
Yep, that's my number 2. So there's a very good chance. We did not talk about this beforehand. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear. That's my number 2. So unless like you really fall off the deep end, I think I know what number 1's gonna be. But let's give the standard bearer for and maybe even still to a lot of people the standard bearer his due. Samoa Joe. You start.
All right. Well, yeah, I feel like, obviously, beyond the great matches and everything else, I feel like this was the first time, like, word really got out about a specific champion in Ring of Honor. Because I feel like before this, like, you start hearing, like, talks about, oh, like, there's this promotion out there. It's like ECW, but for, like, technical wrestling. Or, like, there's all, like, these good wrestlers. But I think this was the first time where, like, at that point, it'd be like, yo, there's this guy, like there's the Samoan guy, and he's, like, been holding this championship for, like, over a year, which in 2004, after like, the 90s boom, the late 90s boom, is, like, unimaginable.
Right.
And just, having these great matches or just beating the shit out of people. And I think just, like, that carried such a weight on its own, as opposed to just being the promotion itself. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that really made it, like, stand out above the rest.
And he was also kind of like, we touched on this when we talked about Aries. He was the first person to truly make that title seem something. Like, it wasn't just, there was an independent boom at that time. Ring of Honor, as much buzz as it was getting, there were a lot of independent feds that were getting a lot of buzz at that time because as a wrestling audience, we wanted an alternative. We'd been without ECW, been without WCW. We wanted to see something, so there was, TNA pops up. ROH is there. There's even things for, like, more hardcore wrestlers. The IWA Mid-South was getting a buzz. CZW was getting a buzz. There was MLW. Like, there was still a lot going on at that time, but it was, it's the first champion to really, like, say, hey, I represent this company. Here is this company. Here is this company's title. Here's why you should care about this company's title more than these other independent companies' title. And, he was taking the belt to Japan. He was taking the belt to Mexico, Europe. The first person to really do that. And then now other people are going, hey, what's this Ring of Honor thing? Carries that on into, the Joe Punk trilogy, which, very critically acclaimed. If you put any stock into Dave Meltzer ratings, like I know some people do, it was the first North American 5-star match in quite some time. And I'm the one that thinks, like, that even wasn't even the best match. I thought the first one was even better, but I digress. But, he turned CM Punk into a superstar with all of that. And then he's also wrestling the who's who of everybody else. He's wrestling Bryan Danielson. He's wrestling, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels. He's having these title defenses against the who's who. He's carrying the company whenever there's a controversy with the former owner of ROH, and ROH loses all the TNA guys. AJ, Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, all of them gone, and they were in storylines. AJ was. There was one person that had more buzz than Punk and Joe in the independent wrestling scene. It was AJ Styles, and he got called away, and Samoa Joe stood fast. He carried the company, made that title worth something. That title elevated Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe elevated that title and that company. And it's a rare instance where all three, the company, the title, and the man, rose each other up. Usually it's one way or the other. This was one instance of it being all three hand in hand.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself, but yeah, I think sometimes you just forget, and then you just sit and think just how fucking great 2004, 2005 Samoa Joe is, and just
even
stuff after.
And even I'm about to say, even he carried that into TNA. I will give him. I mean, maybe he didn't have as much creative freedom, but he carried that into TNA very well.
Oh, he did.
But yeah, some people, even though he's number 2 on my list, you could still argue he was the standard bearer. Even though we both have one guy that was better than Samoa Joe on this list. Anytime anybody had a title run, it was always compared to how'd you do with that title compared to what Samoa Joe did with it? Did you take it overseas? Did you take it to other promotions? How many title defenses did you have? What was your quality of work like compared to what Joe had? And, yeah, Joe was great.
It's great. Now I just want to watch some classic Joe now.
Yeah. It's funny. Small tangent. I was all excited about all right, Samoa Joe's finally going to be part of WrestleMania. I'm going to see Samoa Joe's first WrestleMania match. I'm so excited. It's with Rey Mysterio, and it's going to be so cool to see this great match and see Samoa Joe finally get his WrestleMania moment. He wins at least. It's over in less than a minute. Yeah,
that's something.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so number 1. You know what? Since I think it's the same, let's count to 3 and say it at the same time. Well, first we gotta give our honorable mentions. Let's give our honorable mentions.
All right. Well, I mentioned one of them earlier, Tyler Black. Like I said, it was just very there's just a lot of good middle runs. I know you had him on your list, but yeah, I feel like Cody was close. Not so much for the run itself. Actually, no, I'll get to that one later. But Homicide, I'd say winning the title itself was a fantastic moment. Any for you?
That's Homicide just from winning it. Definitely Loki for being the first. Murashima for just being so different than everybody else. Christopher Daniels again for the moment. That was such an emotional build up to that match, man. Him and Adam Cole. It wasn't meant to be a long reign, but just you want to talk about butterflies going into a match. The way how emotional Daniels was, how much of a fucking asshole that Adam Cole was, and you were just, you knew that Daniels' time was running out, and he told you as much in the promo, and you felt that emotion, and you felt like this is it for Christopher Daniels. If he don't win it, he's gonna be the only founding father of ROH to never be ROH World Champion, and I bought into that hook, line, and sinker. And it's a great match, a great win. Maybe may not the best title run, but great match and great win. And I'll also give one, may not the best person in the world, but things change, people change. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Jay Briscoe, just the way the guy that was there since the first show being the one to dethrone Kevin Steen. It was a good role. It was a good moment. Should he have won the title twice? No. Should he have put the Confederate flag on the belt? No. But,
Forgot about that.
But all that aside,
another quick tangent. Oh, I'll just say very quick because I feel like this could be an episode in itself. But who would have you put out of like? Is there any, or who would you say is the best to not win the world title that should have been a Ring of Honor World Champion?
Whew.
Yeah, I don't say the best, because I feel like this could be a whole episode. But if you could just if there's one on top of
well, because especially there towards the end, all those people started getting their reigns, so a lot of the people that normally be on there eventually got one. I'd say probably Cabana and Jacobs, maybe Jimmy Jacobs and Cole Cabana. Maybe throw Claudio in there as well.
Yeah, I can agree with those. For me personally, I'd say Alex Shelley.
Yeah, he's up there. He was something else. Going back to the Austin Aries reign, they ousted him from Generation Next, and you thought Shelley was going to beat Aries. That was also another good match there. Yeah.
Yeah, a great Manhattan Mayhem match, and I don't know, as much as I love classic Ring of Honor, I do feel like that, even in Gabe in his prime, I feel like that was one of the blunders of just. As much as I liked Gen Next against the Embassy, it really it went from Austin Aries Alex Shelley feud to Austin Aries versus Prince Nana, and I feel like Shelley never got to kind of that point again in Ring of Honor.
I can agree with that. Guy, at least. I can agree with that. One more for the best to never won it, AJ Styles.
Oh yeah,
it was just never. ROH was never his top priority, but he could have been a great ROH champion, be it because TNA was such a big deal to him or New Japan, but I was actually kind of hoping that he would have beat Lethal at Final Battle 2015. I was
thinking the same, yeah.
But when he didn't, that's when the rumors started, and then he lost to Nakamura. The rumors start swirling in. It's okay, I understand why he didn't win, but yeah, I'll throw AJ in there as well. All right, so our number one, and I think it's the same, so we're going to count to 3 and say it at the same time, all right? 1, 2, 3. Matt Taven. Yeah, Matt Taven, man. If you don't think Matt Taven's the greatest, then you's just a dumb mock. He got heat. That's what the business is built on, bro. It's the heat. And yes, my bully Ray goes in and out of being a Vince Russo sometimes, you stupid mocks. I kid.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. You should know how bad this run is, because, the last 5 minutes, as we were talking, I was trying to think in my head, okay, we're doing this count to 3. I should name someone, obviously, that's not the number one. And, for a gag. And Matt Taven did not come up in my head at all, because I had just forgotten and erased it so much, despite being there for when he won the world title.
Oh, God.
What can I say? I was I don't want to say Xavier. That'd be mean now. I don't know. Dalton Castle's run was kind of cut under it, but I wouldn't make it a gag answer. I was who can I choose? I somehow forgot the worst one.
The actual worst. But no, all right, for real. No more bullshit. 1, 2, 3. Brian Danielson. Yes. Brian Danielson, the American Dragon, the greatest Ring of Honor champion of all time, perhaps the greatest wrestler of all time. Oh, according to the timer here, we have been talking for an hour and 18 minutes. We might go another 2 hours and 18 minutes talking about Brian Danielson.
We're just talking about Brian Danielson.
Yeah, shout out to Joseph Montecilio. He kind of beat us to the punch and did a better job than we would do. But I'll let you start about the greatness that was this reign, and then I'll go into my own.
I personally really don't like the word tweener. I think also just because I hate how it sounds. But if anyone is a tweener champ or just did that role so well, it was Brian Danielson as Ring of Honor champion. Just because I feel and we're seeing a little bit of that in AEW, but I just feel in his Ring of Honor World title run, it just felt like he could literally main event with anybody in a title match and just make it work. I'd say Nigel came close, but he stuck pretty well to being a heel, where it felt like for Danielson, you could really took it like until near the end of the run, where it was like a bit more obvious he was being a heel.
Right.
Like at the end of the CZW feud going into Homicide, it really did feel like you could just really put anyone in a title match with Danielson, and it would have worked. I mean, fuck, they even fucking did Kamala, different promotion, but still.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. This is. He had originally Nigel tied it, but he had originally the record for the most successful title defenses. But first of all, he wins it from James Gibson. Kind of putting it into the antithesis of Punk, of the guy going to the WWE. And then, the thing is, like, before Bryan even won the title, he was doing a whole storyline where he's like, if I can't win the title, there's nothing really left for me to do in wrestling. So, like, you were wondering, like, well, is he getting ready to have a final run? What's going on? And then, like, he wins the title and he's immediately defending against Austin Aries. And then from there, they do a storyline where he sent open contracts to everywhere in the wrestling world. And he is taking open challenges to prove that he is the best wrestler in the world. And he, Steve Corino picks up one of the open contracts. Naomichi Marufuji picks up one of the open contracts. AJ Styles picks one up. Chris Hero picks one up. Kickstarting the CZW program, that's how you do an invasion. Everybody wants, small sidebar here, everybody wants to see some kind of invasion nowadays. Oh, I want New Japan to invade AEW. I want Ring of Honor to invade AEW. Nothing will ever be as good as that invasion because it just the way it was done, and that's a whole debate for another day. But he kickstarts that, all the while he's doing, he's doing those sort of things, and he's also engaged in a war with, you mentioned Tweener, but he's a babyface feuding with Jimmy Rave and the Chris Hero and Alex Shelley and all these guys. But then you also have, on top of all that, you have him being a heel against the likes of Naomichi Marufuji. Lance Storm comes to Ring of Honor in Chicago to feud with, or to have a match with Bryan Danielson. He's turning Roderick Strong into Roderick Strong is becoming a spiry babyface against Bryan Danielson's heel tactics, and and then on top of that, he's depending on what country you're in, him and Nigel start their feud over which title means the most. Is it the pure title? Is it the world title? Colt Cabana having a great series of matches with Colt Cabana, 2 of them in Chicago. And then waiting in the wings is Samoa Joe, has a 1-hour Broadway on my 17th birthday with Samoa Joe, leading to a cage match with Samoa Joe. Kenta, has this amazing match with Kenta in the Grand Ballroom. He unifies the World and Pure titles in the UK with Nigel McGuinness in what might be the greatest match in Ring of Honor history. Just, the man was not capable of a bad match, and the man was not capable of you not buying into how great he was as world champion. Would that work in WWE as much as I want to see? I don't know. Maybe not. But we're getting a glimpse of it now, and it's just, he could possibly be the greatest wrestler of all time. I know people want to say Flair, and I know people want to say Hogan, and I know people want to say Cena and Jericho and Okada, but I think, if you ask me, it's Bryan Danielson, and he's the greatest Ring of Honor champion of all time. He held. We say all champions are compared to Samoa Joe, and what did you do with it in comparison to Joe? He was on Joe's level at the very least. You got it. If your opinion is he's not on Joe's level, that's fine. That's fine. I understand. It's a respectable opinion, but you got to say that he or it wasn't better than Joe, but he was on Joe's level for sure.
Oh yeah.
And he's. Yep.
That's the crazy thing. Yeah, did you ever read Danielson's or Daniel Bryan's or whatever you want to say, his book from a few years ago?
I have read it, yes.
Oh, I always thought it was interesting when he talked about his run as Ring of Honor champion. Maybe it's just because it's a WWE book, so I didn't want to go too much into it, or maybe just he didn't want to gloat. But it felt like as his run as Ring of Honor champion, he focused more on his misses or what he considered kind of like his misfires, as opposed like his few misfires as champion, as opposed to like just talking about how great the run was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Something else to mention, I see what you're saying, but like something else that needs mentioned is, so he won the belt in September 2005. He lost it in December of 2006. To Homicide in New York City. But from like mid-August to the end of that, to the end of that reign, he separated his shoulder and went on to have matches with the likes of Nigel Mcginnis, 1 hour Broadway, Colt Cabana, 1 hour Broadway, Kenta kicking him in the shoulder, Samoa Joe in a steel cage, Delirious, all these different names of people, Roderick Strong, all with a separated fucking shoulder. Went on to complete his reign and subsequently make sure that Homicide had his moment of winning the title. And yeah. Oh, just fucking. That's just another layer to like, would know how fucking great this was. He was working hurt.
And also, I'd say compared to outside of maybe Joe, I feel like I feel like we kind of talked about this Nigel a bit. I feel like compared to other champions, especially the long runs, I feel like Danielson was the one, maybe the only one, or at least the best in terms of just as great as it was, also just kind of ending at the right time, if that makes sense.
Right. It had a logical conclusion. It wasn't like, oh, I can't speak for everybody. I wasn't really on at least the boards discussing Ring of Honor as much of the time. Hell, I didn't even experience this title reign until 2 years later. Sorry. Quite a bit of ROH came after the fact, but eventually I binge watched it, got caught up, and rode with them until Cornette became too influential. But anyway, but I don't know if there's ever any talk of, well, I'm getting a little tired of Bryan right now. If somebody who's watching Ring of Honor listens to this and can attest to it, please let me know. But I don't.
As someone that was like following the DVDs a few months later, yeah, I feel like, I think we were all kind of anticipating Homicide winning,
right? Yeah,
but I feel like.
But here's something else about Homicide winning. I do remember like the feeling like people didn't know. I do remember that much because people were like, well, he's in TNA now and he's doing this thing with LAX. Maybe this is his swan song. He wants to go out in New York before he becomes full-time with TNA. That was a thought. So, even going into the logical conclusion, you also had that seed of doubt.
Yeah. And Danielson could have won, and I think people would have been fine with it, and he could have gone on as much longer as his body could have. But I don't think it just
right.
It wouldn't. Whenever he lost it, we just wouldn't have had the same momentum as losing it to Homicide that night.
Right, but there was, to that end, I don't really remember hearing a lot of people say like, oh well, Bryan needs to lose. But I'm getting a little sick of this. I remember, with Nigel, people were getting a little tired of it. People were kind of over. In some cases, people were kind of over Davey or over Tyler when they won, or things of that nature. And I do think people were kind of. I think when Joe beat Punk, people were kind of starting to get like, okay, I'm getting a little sick of this. That I wasn't really following it, but just kind of going back when I'm bored and going back and rereading some of that old stuff. I can remember like a lot of people like, well, if it ain't gonna be Punk, I'm getting kind of a little sick of Joe right now. But I don't really recall Brian ever having that. And, maybe it's just because of how he's endeared himself to the ROH fan base, or maybe it's because he could be the greatest of all time. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But, yeah. Anything else you'd like to add about Brian Danielson's ROH title reign?
I think just some things are number one for a reason. Like, I feel like sometimes when you do these lists, you kind of want to think left field for the number one just to be shocking, or you know what I mean, or at least just not to be like
everyone else.
Just the best is the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and and to be fair, that there's a strong argument for some others being the best. I could see somebody's argument to Samoa Joe being number one. I could see somebody's argument for Nigel Mcginnis or Adam Cole or Jay Lethal. Any of my top five, I could see the argument to being number one. But just because you have an argument doesn't mean I agree with you. And I'm willing to die on the hill that at the very least Bryan Danielson's top two. And I'm willing to be mortally wounded on the hill of he's the greatest ROH champion of all time. So, well, thank you all for joining us for this top 10 list. Hopefully, I know don't want to date this too much, but hopefully this isn't the end of Ring of Honor, and maybe in 5 more years it'll recover and we can talk about how, we need to do a top 20 list because Jonathan Gresham's just that great, or, they entered a partnership with the NWA and you wouldn't believe how great Nick Aldis was as ROH champion, or whatever. Hopefully this isn't the end of Ring of Honor, but if it was the end of Ring of Honor, much as I wasn't a fan of him at the end, when I think of Ring of Honor, I still think of things like these 10 individuals and what they have done. Yeah. And,
or I guess 13 on my case.
13. I think of the good. I will always think of the good times and what I love about ROH before I think of, how they fell off the rails there at the very end. And ROH will always be a happy wrestling memory to me. So
through the highs and lows, the wrestling world is better for having Ring of Honor in it and for what it did. And whether there's more to come or not, I've enjoyed this list. So if you ever want to talk a bit more about Classic Ring of Honor or just Ring of Honor in general, give me a call. I'm already thinking of concepts in my head we can talk about later.
Yes. But, I saw this comment on Twitter, and it holds true. Ring of Honor crawled so AEW and NXT could walk. And that is the God's honest truth. So thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of comic books, gaming, anime, and all things geek culture. Follow me on social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeek89, Twitter athletic_geek89, Instagram athleticgeek89. If you'd like to help improve this channel financially, I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/athleticgeek89. Still TBA on the social medias, right?
All right, yeah, I'm still in the shadows, but if anyone wants to reach me just on your comments, just put Ask El Charloco. We'll make a weekly mailbag out of it.
Make a weekly mailbag, yeah. We'll make a weekly mailbag. All right, well, definitely be on the lookout for the weekly mailbag, and we'll see you next time.